Hello, good evening. How are you doing? We are waiting for the others to join. I don't think there will be many joining. Um, can you put in the chat from where you are joining and what time is it for you? By the way, you can unmute yourself. This is not a webinar where you're just listening. You can unmute, ask any questions if you like. Otherwise, you can ask them in the chat. Okay, let's start. Can you hear me all right? I hope you can. This is not a normal webinar where I have a presentation and a script, and I just want to guide you through the ASPICE universe, and I will give you an overview to the products, the books, and some other things. But before I start, let me introduce myself. My name is Ronald Melster in the automotive industry, also known as Ron. I've been in the automotive industry since the year 2000, and I became a competent assessor in 2005, so 21 years. I've been an assessor without any disruptions, so I think I'm one of the longest serving assessors, at least in Europe, maybe even in the world. Of course, I'm a principal assessor, and around the year 2006, I got in contact with functional safety as well. At this time, the standard ISO 26262 was very new. My boss asked me, "Do you want to work on this?" And I said, "Yes, okay, that sounds interesting." I was safety manager for braking functionality and even airbag deployment up to ASIL D. And technically, I'm a software, a computer scientist, studied computer science in Berlin and Edinburgh, and I got in touch with processes very early in the 90s. I found this interesting, and not just the technical side, how to visualize processes, but also, as we see, the psychological side, how to convince people, how to guide people, etc. So let me give you an overview to the ASPICE universe briefly. Of course, there are the books, which we go through in a second. Then there is something called Melster Academy. It's a couple of video courses. They are now on Udemy. I think €9 or €20, quite cheap. It's a starting point if you want to learn about these processes, project management, quality assurance, configuration management, change request management, and problem resolution management. If you have never had the chance to learn about these processes, this is your starting point. And then, of course, actually in this order, the software processes, they're relevant for many people. And if you're working on system level, the system processes. Then there are the interview catalogs. They are specifically for less experienced assessors. If they want to start an interview, these catalogs give you an introduction, okay, which question you can ask at the beginning. And then there is the community of practice. It's a weekly call each Friday. Tomorrow we will talk about how to convince the managers to do ASPICE. We have rotating topics. We talk about more technical issues, like we compare the base practices between 3.1 and 4.0, or we talk about more strategic topics like how do we need to convince the management to do ASPICE? What is the benefit of ASPICE? If you want to join, just drop me a note. I can invite you 2 times for free. Hey, Wojciech. To the community of practice. And then there are the books. There's an overview to, no, books, it's there, books. By now it's 3 books. The first book, which I started about 1 year ago in February, I decided I need to write a book to contribute to the community and to share my knowledge, my experience, the best practices. We will have a look at this book in a second. And then the next book was actually behavior and assessments, the human side, the psychological side. And the third book is the Cybersecurity Extension, which becomes more and more important. Let's have a look at the first book. I think it's still the only book about Automotive SPICE in English at the moment. Most of the books are in German or outdated or both. It's the only book in English. It does not repeat the base practices. If you want to learn about the base practices, then you should listen to the video courses on Udemy. This book actually builds on the base practices, and it shares best practices. Let's have a look at the table of content. Okay, that's the introduction. Okay. Of course, we need some theory. What is a process? There's lots of misunderstandings. What is a process? It's often mixed up with methods or tools even. A process is very abstract. That has an input, an output, and something in between. It can have steps, but most of the times the definition of process in ASPICE, they don't define steps. Then why do we do ASPICE? According to the golden circle of Simon Sinek, why do we need to do ASPICE? I write a chapter about this. Most of the concepts of ASPICE are very old. They're not something which was invented in the last years. They date back to the 80s, maybe in the 70s. And then again, some theory, the 2 dimensions of ASPICE we need to understand. And then I define something which I call core processes. These are processes which are needed in every project so that it does work. And then I continue with the engineering processes. I regroup them as well. I don't go through system requirements, analysis, system architecture, etc. because an requirements process is a requirements process. They have many things in common. Requirement is a requirement. It needs to be verifiable. It needs to be consistent, not contradicting any other requirement. So I regroup system requirements with software requirements, and the same for the architecture level. An architecture on system level and software level has many things in common. Every architecture, even the detailed design, defines the static structure, then the interfaces between the elements, and then the dynamic behavior. How do they interact with each other? Of course, there are some differences on system level, in software level, and I elaborate these differences as well. So first I talk about the common things on the architecture processes, and then on the differences between system architecture, because the elements on the system architecture level, they are physical elements. They're sensors, they are housings, screws, processors, wires, etc. While on software level, we talk about components, units, modules. And for each of the processes, I have a common structure, a little bit of theory, what is a project, why we do this process, in this case, project management, where do the expectations for this process come from, what are the main activities in the process. It's somehow along the base practices, but I highlight some of the main activities. And then the structure is always the same. I talk about challenges, which I collected during my experience when coaching projects. And for each and every challenge, there is at least one best practice. How can we actually solve this challenge? For example, how to define the scope of the project. Why don't you use the SMART criteria or SMART methods for defining objectives? So this is the first book. And all of the books are available as ebook on Kindle. There's the PDF version. So if you buy it on Stripe, you will get the PDF watermarked versions within some minutes. There is a printed version if you're in Germany, Austria, or Switzerland. And of course, there's the Amazon version, so you can buy it around the world, which is true for all the books. Let's have a look at the second book. As soon as I published the first book, people approached me, does this book, the first one, covers cybersecurity? And it does not, because it's an MVP, minimum viable product. So I started writing the Cybersecurity Extension. The foundation of this book is, of course, that you know the normal Automotive SPICE, because it's reusing a lot of things. For example, Sec 3 risk treatment verification relies on the verification processes which are defined in Automotive SPICE: unit verification, integration verification, software qualification, and SIS4 and SIS5. And the same is true for requirements, and the implementation is actually the left-hand side of the V model. The only thing which is new, which I describe here, is how to validate the cybersecurity risks. And then I go through the workflow, how to define a proper TARA, threat analysis risk assessment. I start with the item definition. The standard starts with the threat scenario identification, but it doesn't work from my experience. And then I define how these processes work together with the ASPICE processes. How do they integrate? How do they reuse artifacts? And for example, the cybersecurity goals are broken down to cybersecurity requirements, and these are handed over to the normal requirements engineering in the normal ASPICE. Okay, and again, it's available on these 4 channels. And the third book is called The Human Side of Automotive SPICE Assessments. It's based on a webinar I did with a colleague from Luxoft, I think 1 year ago, the psychological side of ASPICE assessments. And we covered both sides. Okay, the side, the perspective of the team which is being assessed, and then the side of the assessor. What is the stress? What are the challenges for the assessor and the assessed teams? Hi, Evgenia. Welcome. And the interesting thing, when we did the webinar in February last year with Olena, I assessed Olena 2 or 3 years earlier. So she was sitting on the other side, was very stressed, me, the assessor, and I was sitting on the other side. And I had stress as well because it was a potential analysis, had limited time, I need to come up with a fair rating. And so we collected these challenges. And again, it's the same concept. There's a challenge, and for each challenge, we provide a best practice, at least one best practice. And the fourth book, it's called a case study, but it's a book with I think 180 pages, which was published yesterday. It's called ASPICE Light. There's a high demand for a pragmatic approach for smaller teams. So Sohel Dar, who is an active member of the community of practice, and we published this book, as I said, yesterday. And we are doing tailoring on 3 levels. On the process level, we skip actually some of the processes, and then we tailor on base practice level. We merge some base practices, and we skip even some of the base practice, and of course on document level. And in the appendix, we provide turtle diagrams for all the processes and also templates. Let's have a look at the templates: project plan template or project handbook, quality assurance plan template, configuration management, release notes, and then we start with the turtle diagrams. And for each and every process, we discuss about the information items, what artifacts need to be created, and we have we define the responsibilities because for small projects, there's often the case that one person needs to be in different roles. For example, the lead developer is both the requirements manager and the architect or the person responsible for the detail design. So, and then we define a very, I'm just seeking for it, a very lightweight workflow for each process. Okay, and as I said, this is available now from yesterday or 2 weeks ago. And to answer the question, which book is the best one for, if you're doing normal ASPICE, then it's the best practices. This book, if you want to apply the core processes, project management with the best practices, then this book is the first one. If you need to do cybersecurity or you are in the role of cybersecurity engineer or manager, then the second book would be the best one for you. If you are an assessor or want to prepare your team for an assessment, then this third book would be for you. And if you are the project manager of a small team or you need to coach a very small team, then I would recommend you the case study ASPICE Light. This one. Do you have any specific questions regarding the books? You can put it in the chat or you can unmute yourself.
I have one question, Ronald.
Go ahead. Yes.
Concerning your latest book, ASPICE Light, so could you share what were the main questions coming from the community, or what were the main reasons why this kind of book is so, let's say, needed on the market?
I will answer the question by telling you a story. I was on the Quality Management Summit of the VDA last year in October, and everyone was talking about the time pressure, the pressure on the coast. We want to be agile, we want to be flexible, and this seems to contradict the normal ASPICE. With the full ASPICE, we are talking about 1 or 2 years of establishing level 1 and 2, as you might know. So this is a faster way. And it does answer the question, okay, where do we start? How do we start? Which artifacts, which work products, what can we drop for the first iteration or maybe even the full project. And if you emerge from a small project or small team, and then you are asked to do the full ASPICE, you have already a solid foundation. I think I skipped something. We define what we mean by small project. It's the time. If you're talking about a project, just a few weeks, this is a small project. If you talk about a small team of 5 people working together, that's a small project. And actually, I can tell you a story. A team which I had in mind when I was writing this case study. It's, I think, 5 or 6 years ago, I assessed a team and they provided a software. I think it was 500 lines of code. And the team was actually 5 people. But they needed to comply with the full ASPICE and they were struggling a lot. For example, the project manager needs to write the requirements and the architecture and implement, and they needed to provide the independence of quality assurance. How can we do reviews of requirements with 5 people? These are the kind of questions which came up. So I had this small team in mind when I was writing this case study. I wanted to help these kind of projects and teams and to be compliant, but kind of compliant. we are writing in the problem statement. I don't think the small teams, they need to pass an assessment. They just want to develop in a systematic way. Evgenia, you have a question or a remark?
Yeah, actually, I had a question, and I was on first, hello. So, and okay, first question actually from yesterday's meeting as well,
Okay.
regarding this definition of small project. Because I understood from yesterday that it's like most about the time, and after that the size. Because, for
Okay.
example, if we have, let's say, internal platform or whatever project, which is small, which delivers, for example, one or two components, but it lasts forever, let's say.
Okay. Okay.
And is it small project? Because, for example, you told yesterday about sub 10, but in this case, in this like internal project, yes, sub 10 is applicable, yeah, because it's like, how to say, extended in time, yeah, and for sure. And yes, and my question actually to be sure, what is the small project?
Yes, I had a discussion on LinkedIn today. So I will show you the criteria in a second, and then we really can discuss. I think it was not crystal clear. Teams mapping. Okay. 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 Then you see my screen. So it's the Automotive SPICE case study for small teams. I think it's a little bit smaller. I will zoom in a second. Okay. It's a little bit like ISO 26262. If you remember, bad examples of bad safety culture, good safety culture. So it's not black and white. It's a guideline. It's not only the time. It starts with the scope. What is the deliverable? If you have a pure software project, you can apply our recommendations. And if you have a bigger scope, a full ECU with hardware and mechanics and full system safety and security, then the complexity is higher, and the recommendation is apply the full ASPICE, even it takes longer. Product scope. Then there's the time, total development, up to 6 months. Okay, we're talking about weeks and six. If it's longer, then you might need to apply the full ASPICE. Like you mentioned, you will have change requests after, during the 6 months. So you need to establish change request management. Then we have the interfaces and the team size. We are saying up to 15. It's okay. If you have a team size greater than 15, again, you cannot apply this approach. Or what I mentioned yesterday, distributed development. If you have different development locations across the world, then this approach is nothing for you. Reuse of the software, which means that you have an existing software and you are just changing a little part. Then we are saying, okay, it's lower complexity and you can apply this tailoring approach for smaller teams or smaller projects. I think yeah, the reusability is even a supporting parameter. So the first three, the product scope, the time and the interfaces, they are determining if you are a small project. Does this answer your question?
Mhm.
And
And
go ahead, sorry.
I'm just thinking that this guideline, your book, I mean,
Yes.
it could be like guideline for small team to
Yes,
how
yes.
to say develop process and to be able to how to say write it down, for example, in
Yes.
project manual, and after that to have like arguments during discussion of assessment scope if needed.
There was this question yesterday. If you could say, okay, there's this ASPICE Light, and you negotiate with the customer that you don't do change request management. And we had someone from Volkswagen yesterday in the call, and he was not contradicting. So because there is the trend, okay, we need more flexibility. There is the willingness of the customers, okay, you can apply ASPICE Light under these conditions. If you have a smaller team, and you could apply this approach to internal teams as well. Even in a bigger organization, okay, you have a small team, and they apply this approach, and they start with these processes only. Here we're saying, for example, change request management is optional. If you have a very small change project, for example. And I wanted to show you something else. The turtle diagrams. You mentioned how to define processes. And I might show the workflows as well. It's a little bit small, you have to read it like this, but we provide a turtle diagram out of the box for all of the processes. Here are the typical roles, the tools which are typically used, and you can choose, okay, what is the configuration management tool you want to use, GitHub, or is it Subversion, or even Confluence can be configuration management tool. So it's the first step, which helps smaller teams to define their process landscape. And let me show you the workflow as well, so that you get an idea, okay, where does it actually help? Quality assurance. Let's start with project management. Yeah, it's very lightweight. You have the project kickoff, in which you have to do some things. You have to define something, and then you identify activities. Again, we are talking about a small project with 5 people. So you sit together, you define the activities along with the risks. Project interfaces, you still have 1 or 2 or 3 project interfaces, and then you have schedule, and that's it. And then you just talk about the progress of your small project, and then, of course, you have a loop. You might identify additional activities which are then put into the schedule. No consistency, no extensive reporting to to different levels of management. This is the kind of workflow which helps you to organize your work, for example, for project management. And we do this for all the processes.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome. Zoe.
Hi, Ron. Hello, everyone.
Good evening. How are
Good
you?
evening. I'm
You
good.
feel better?
How about you? Yeah, much better now.
Good. Good.
Still catching up, I would say.
Yes. Have you met Zoe? He's the co-author of the case study. Maybe you would like to introduce yourself shortly.
Yeah, sure. Can you see me?
Yes.
Is my camera working?
Yep.
Perfect. Okay, so yeah. Good evening, good afternoon, everyone. I'm not sure if, about your location, but yeah, greetings are in order. Then yeah, I'll just introduce myself. So my name is Sohail Dhar. I'm currently working as a project manager at Volkswagen Infotainment, and I've been working here for Volkswagen's close to now 3.5, 4 years. And as Ron mentioned, I had the opportunity to co-author this ASPICE case study. ASPICE, we call it Automotive SPICE Light, or ASPICE for small teams. Yeah. And here, in this book, me and Ron, we have shared some practical insights regarding the approach and, let's say, how the process architecture should look like, especially in case of a small team. Considering we have also, what we have done is we have also framed a kind of a criteria as well. So that's more or less a kind of a prerequisite which we have used in order to classify the projects as small, medium, and high complexity ones. And then based on this approach, we further have elaborated our case study and provided some clear examples along with some turtle diagrams and the roles, the processes, how the overall processes would look like, what kind of KPIs you could have, which processes could have some sort of overlappings and all. So that's more or less about the book. Yeah, and I think, yeah, please feel free to go through the book and share your experience and insights with us. That would be really helpful for both of us, for me and for Ron as well, to further, let's say, build on this process or this journey on which we have, on which we have already more or less the journey which we have started, yeah, regarding this case study. Yeah. So thank you. Yeah.
Let's rephrase some of the questions which came up yesterday and even today. Do you think it's possible to use this approach for a small team within a bigger organization?
I would say it would depend for sure, let's say, but more or less, let's say, in a bigger organization as well, it depends on, let's say, how the team is structured, what are the project interfaces. So that's more or less, I would say, the prerequisites for this case study. And yes, it could be applied, let's say, in a smaller organization, in a bigger organization. So the organization is, let's say, not the criteria based on which we have created this case study. So it's more or less the project and the interfaces your project shares. So that's more or less the criteria, and of course the reusability concept as well.
Yeah.
So
So
that's, yeah.
could apply within a bigger organization. You have a small team, and of course you need to determine the criteria. If you come to the conclusion it's a small team, even in a bigger company, you can apply this approach. This was my answer, at least yesterday. Of course, a bigger organization should have a process landscape in place but there are still some organizations struggling to build up this process landscape, and then they can start with the ASPICE Light. It's not a trademark yet, but we were actually thinking to approach the VDA to publish this as an official PAM or approach, because there's a high demand, as I mentioned earlier, for this kind of flexible approach. And what else came up as a question? Do you think this approach should be applied to a safety-related project?
In short, the answer would be no.
Yes, okay. I answered this saying no. Actually, I share the criteria early on. There's clearly saying if it's safety or cybersecurity related, no, the complexity is higher. Don't do this. You could do it as a first step. Okay, first we do ASPICE Light as kind of milestone, and then you approach the full ASPICE. That's possible. Yeah. Okay. I just want to share something else. There is a voucher now, as part of the the publishing and the promoting process. There's a 25% voucher now. If you follow any of the links to Stripe and you apply this voucher, you get 25% off. Actually, it applies to all the products, so the other books as well. It's not limited to the case study. Okay, are there any further questions, remarks? If not, I have a question actually. Have you found this webinar useful? Does it help you to decide, okay, which book you should decide for? Actually, before you answer this question, the reason why I scheduled this webinar was one of the colleagues mentioned, he was saying, he was thinking that in the ASPICE book, the best practice, that I define a complete process landscape, so a kind of standard process out of the box, which is not true. It's best practices. They are mainly on level 1 and 2. It's not a process landscape which you can apply. Actually, with the turtle diagrams, the ASPICE Light is more like a first step towards a process landscape than the other book. So he was a little bit confused, and that's why I said, okay, let's talk about the books and show the books, the table of contents, which book is applicable to which kind of scenario. Okay.
Ronald, maybe I would have one observation. So the order how the book should be read is similar to the Star Wars movies, right? That you started with the last one, but in reality you should start with the one which you published yesterday, right? As a first step.
Okay. Star Wars. What is it called? I don't know. Yes. Okay. Going back in time. Yeah.
Exactly. Yes.
Okay. I'm just thinking. Am I Darth
Because
Vader?
what would be the best order to read the books, to have, let's say, everything sorted out?
Actually, as I mentioned earlier, if you have never done ASPICE, I would recommend not to start with the books, but with the Udemy videos. Okay. That's why it's called Universe. It's okay, Star Wars Universe. It's the Melster Academy. It's on Udemy, and in these videos I start reading the purpose. What is project management about? To define a scope, and then I go through the base practices. So if you want to learn about the base practices, start with the videos. In there, next I would recommend this Bible, the best practices. Okay, now you have a real world project, and you face the challenges. Like you never have one level of project management. In bigger organizations, you always have different levels of project management. You have the overall project management, talking to the customer. You have project management on team level for the software team. They could apply ASPICE Light. So then next step would be this book. And then if you prepare for an assessment, then it would be the assessment book, this one. Because in this book, you learn how to prepare for an assessment. I think one best practice is to define a storyline. So you, as a team, will go through the base practices. You define golden samples. So how does the story flow? Okay, first you talk about the strategy, then you have test specifications, and then the ASPICE assessor will ask you about the test results, etc. And I think I define assessor types as well, if I can find it. Because this is a challenge some projects face. There are assessors in the world. They will not guide you through the base practices. They will just lean back and say, it's your process, tell me about it. And some of them even switch off the camera, and 2 hours later they say, okay, thank you very much for your presentation. And some teams find this very irritating. Okay, what do I need to show next? For this kind of assessor, you need to have a storyline prepared. You need to be prepared. Okay, first I show this, and then I show this, and because it's your responsibility to cover all aspects of ASPICE. Because as I mentioned, the assessor is assuming that you know the standard and you will talk about each and every base practice. I can't find it, but it's in this book, definitely. Here's the best practice. Use structured storyline. It helps you with this kind of assessor, so you're not lost, and even helps you with the other type of assessor. They will guide you through the base practice. They will start with base practice 1 and 2, etc. And at the end, some assessors will ask you a closing question. This one. Is there anything else you would like to share? And then you can go through your storyline and check if you have actually shown everything you wanted to show, what you prepared for. So again, the storyline will help you. And if you have a cybersecurity related project, then you need this book. Does this answer your question?
Yes, thank you very much.
Videos, then the Bible, then the assessment preparation, or the cybersecurity book. Okay. Yes. If there are no further questions, then thank you very much for attending. Today was a smaller round. It actually was the smallest webinar I've done so far, but I like the discussion, and this was a chance to ask questions directly and to clarify anything regarding the books or the ASPICE universe in general.
Thank you for that.
Okay, thank you for being here, and see you next time. And if you have any questions, don't hesitate to contact Sohail and me anytime.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Okay.
Have a
Evgenia.
nice evening. Bye.
Same to you. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.